Paradise Lost by John Milton, with Mark Straker as the Archangel Michael. Episode 37, in which Michael takes Adam to the top of a hill to show him the future of his descendants.
Adam, thou knowest heaven his, and all the earth, not this rock only. His omnipresence fills land, sea, and air, and every kind that lives, fermented by his virtual power and warmed. All the earth he gave thee to possess and rule. Yet doubt not, but in valley and in plain God is as here, and will be found alike present. And of his presence many a sign still following thee, still compassing thee round with goodness and paternal love, his face express, and of his steps the tract divine, which, that thou mayest believe and be confirmed, ere thou from hence depart, know I am sent to show thee what shall come in future days to thee and to thy offspring. Good with bad expect to hear, supernal grace contending with sinfulness of men. So shalt thou lead safest thy life, and best prepared endure thy mortal passage when it comes. Ascend this hill. Let Eve, for I have drenched her eyes, here sleep below, while thou to foresight wakest, as once thou slepst, while she to life was formed.
Ascend. I follow thee.
So both ascend in the visions of God. It was a hill of paradise the highest, from whose top the hemisphere of earth in clearest ken stretched out to amplest reach of prospect lay. Not higher that hill, nor wider looking round, whereon for different cause the tempter set our second Adam in the wilderness, to show him all earth's kingdoms and their glory. His eye might there command wherever stood city of old or modern fame, the seat of mightiest empire, from the destined walls of Cambalu, seat of Cathayan Khan, and Samarkand by Oxus, Temir's throne, to Paquin of Sinaean kings, and thence to Agra and Lahore of great Moghal, down to the golden Chersonese, or where the Persian in Akbatan sat, or since in Isfahan, or where the Russian Tsar in Moscow, or the Sultan in Byzance, Turkestan born. Nor could his eye not ken the empire of Negus to his utmost port, Erkoko and the less maritime kings, Mombasa and Quiloa and Melind and Sofala, thought Ophir, to the realm of Congo and Angola farthest south, or thence from Niger flood to Atlas Mount, the kingdoms of Almansor, Fez and Sousse, Morocco and Algiers and Tremisen. On Europe thence, and where Rome was to sway the world. In spirit perhaps he also saw rich Mexico, the seat of Montezuma, and Cuzco in Peru, the richer seat of Atabalpa, and yet unspoiled Guiana, whose great city Gerion's sons call El Dorado. But to nobler sights Michael from Adam's eyes the film removed, which that false fruit that promised clearer sight had bred. Then purged with Euphrasian rue the visual nerve, for he had much to see, and from the well of life 3 drops instilled. So deep the power of these ingredients pierced, even to the inmost seat of mental sight, that Adam, now enforced to close his eyes, sunk down, and all his spirits became entranced. But him the gentle angel by the hand soon raised, and his attention thus recalled.
Adam, now ope thine eyes, and first behold the effects which thy original crime hath wrought in some to spring from thee, who never touched the accepted tree, nor with the snake conspired, nor sinned thy sin. Yet from that sin derive corruption to bring forth more violent deeds.
His eyes he opened, and beheld a field, part arable and tilth, whereon were sheaves new reaped, and other part sheep-walks and folds. In the midst an altar as the landmark stood, rustic of grassy sward. Thither anon a sweaty reaper from his tillage brought first fruits, the green ear and the yellow sheaf, unculled, as came to hand. A shepherd next, more meek, came with the firstlings of his flock, choicest and best. Then, sacrificing, laid the inwards and their fat, with incense strewed, on the cleft wood, and all due rites performed. His offering soon propitious fire from heaven consumed with nimble glance and grateful steam. The others not, for his was not sincere. Whereat he inly raged, and as they talked, smote him into the midriff with a stone that beat out life. He fell, and deadly pale groaned out his soul, with gushing blood effused. Much at that sight was Adam in his heart dismayed, and thus in haste to the angel cried,
O teacher, some great mischief hath befallen to that meek man who well had sacrificed. Is piety thus and pure devotion paid?
These two are brethren, Adam, and to come out of thy loins. The unjust the just hath slain, for envy that his brother's offering found from heaven acceptance. But the bloody act will be avenged, and the other's faith approved lose no reward, though here thou see him die, rolling in dust and gore.
Alas, both for the deed and for the cause. But have I now seen death? Is this the way I must return to native dust? O sight of terror, foul and ugly to behold, horrid to think, how horrible to feel!
Death thou hast seen in his first shape on man, but many shapes of death, and many are the ways that lead to his grim cave, all dismal, yet descents more terrible at the entrance than within. Some, as thou sawest, by violent stroke shall die, by fire, flood, famine, by intemperance more in meats and drinks, which on the earth shall bring diseases dire, of which a monstrous crew before thee shall appear, that thou mayest know what misery the inabstinence of Eve shall bring on men.
Immediately a place before his eyes appeared, sad, noisome, dark, a lazar house it seemed, wherein were laid numbers of all diseased, all maladies of ghastly spasm or racking torture, qualms of heart-sick agony, all feverous kinds, convulsions, epilepsies, fierce catarrhs, intestine stone and ulcer, colic pangs, demoniac frenzy, moping melancholy and moonstruck madness, pining atrophy, consumption and wide-wasting pestilence, dropsies and asthmas and joint-racking rheums. Dire was the tossing, deep the groans. Despair tended the sick busiest from couch to couch, and over them triumphant death his dart shook, but delayed to strike, though oft invoked with vows as their chief good and final hope. Sight so deform, what heart of rock could long dry-eyed behold? Adam could not, but wept, though not of woman born. Compassion quelled his best of man, and gave him up to tears a space, till firmer thoughts restrained excess, and scarce recovering words, his plaint renewed.
O miserable mankind! To what fall degraded? To what wretched state reserved? Better end here unborn. Why is life given to be thus wrested from us? Why should not man, retaining still divine similitude in part, from such deformities be free, and for his Maker's image sake exempt?
Their Maker's image forsook them when themselves they vilified to serve ungoverned appetite, and took his image whom they served, a brutish vice, inductive mainly to the sin of Eve. Therefore so abject is their punishment, disfiguring not God's likeness, but their own.
I yield it justice, and I do submit. But is there yet no other way, besides these painful passages, how we may come to death, and mix with our connatural dust?
There is, and will be, if thou well observe the rule of not too much, by temperance taught, in what thou eatst and drinkst, seeking from thence due nourishment, not gluttonous delight, till many years over thy head return. So mayst thou live, till like ripe fruit thou drop into thy mother's lap, or be with ease gathered, not harshly plucked, for death mature. This is old age. But then thou must outlive thy youth, thy strength, thy beauty, which will change to withered, weak, and grey. Thy senses, then obtuse, all taste of pleasure must forego to what thou hast. And for the air of youth, hopeful and cheerful, in thy blood will reign a melancholy damp of cold and dry to weigh thy spirits down, and last consume the balm of life.
Henceforth I fly not death, nor would prolong life much, bent rather how I may be quit fairest and easiest of this cumbrous charge, which I must keep till my appointed day of rendering up, and patiently attend my dissolution.
Nor love thy life nor hate, but what thou livest, live well. How long or short permit to heaven. And now prepare thee for another sight.
He looked, and saw a spacious plain, whereon were tents of various hue. By some were herds of cattle grazing, others whence the sound of instruments that made melodious chime was heard, of harp and organ, and who moved their stops and chords was seen. His volant touch, instinct through all proportions, low and high, fled and pursued transverse the resonant fugue. In other part stood one who at the forge labouring 2 massy clods of iron and brass had melted. The liquid ore he drained into fit moulds prepared, from which he formed first his own tools, then what might else be wrought, fusel or graven in metal. After these, but on the hither side, a different sort from the high neighbouring hills, which was their seat, down to the plain descended. By their guise just men they seemed, and all their study bent to worship God aright, and know his works not hid, nor those things lost which might preserve freedom and peace to men. They on the plain long had not walked, when from the tents, behold, a bevy of fair women, richly gay in gems and wanton dress. To the harp they sung soft amorous ditties, and in dance came on. The men, though grave, eyed them, and let their eyes rove without rein, till in the amorous net fast caught, they liked, and each his liking chose. And now of love they treat, till the evening star, love's harbinger, appeared. Then, all in heat, they light the nuptial torch, and bid invoke hymen, then first of marriage rites invoked. With feast and music all the tents resound. Such happy interview and fair event of love and youth not lost, songs, garlands, flowers, and charming symphonies attached the heart of Adam.
In the 37th episode of Paradise Lost, the readers were Mark Straker and Linus Roach. The narrator was Dennis Quilley. Paradise Lost by John Milton, with Mark Straker as the Archangel Michael. Episode 38, in which Michael describes to Adam the events which will lead to the flood and to God's covenant with Noah.
Judge not what is best by pleasure, though to nature seeming meet, created as thou art to nobler end, holy and pure, conformity divine. Those tents thou sawest so pleasant were the tents of wickedness, wherein shall dwell his race who slew his brother. Studious they appear of arts that polish life, inventors rare, unmindful of their Maker, though his spirit taught them, but they his gifts acknowledge none. Yet they a beauteous offspring shall beget. For that fair female troop thou sawest, that seemed of goddesses, so blithe, so smooth, so gay, yet empty of all good, wherein consists woman's domestic honour and chief praise, bred only and completed to the taste of lustful appetence, to sing, to dance, to dress, and troll the tongue and roll the eye.
O pity and shame, that they who to live well entered so fair should turn aside to tread paths indirect, or in the midway faint. But still I see the tenor of man's woe holds on the same, from woman to begin.
From man's effeminate slackness it begins. But now prepare thee for another scene.
He looked and saw wide territory spread before him, towns and rural works between, cities of men and lofty gates and towers, concourse in arms, fierce faces threatening war, giants of mighty bone and bold emprise, part wield their arms, part curb the foaming steed. With cruel tournament the squadrons join, where cattle pastured late, now scattered lies with carcasses and arms the ensanguined field deserted. Others to a city strong lay siege encamped, by battery, scale, and mine assaulting. Others from the wall defend with dart and javelin, stones and sulphurous fire. On each hand slaughter and gigantic deeds. So violence, oppression, and sword law ran through the plain, and refuge none was found. Adam was all in tears, and to his guide lamenting turned full sad.
Oh, what are these? Death's ministers, not men, who thus deal death inhumanly to men, and multiply 10,000-fold the sin of him who slew his brother. For of whom such massacre make they but of their brethren, men of men?
These are the product of those ill-mated marriages thou sawest, where good with bad were matched. Such were these giants, men of high renown. For in those days might only shall be admired, and valour and heroic virtue called, to overcome in battle and subdue nations, and bring home spoils with infinite manslaughter, shall be held the highest pitch of human glory, and for glory done of triumph, to be styled great conquerors, patrons of mankind, gods and sons of gods. Destroyers rightly are called, and plagues of men. Thus fame shall be achieved, renown on earth, and what most merits fame, in silence hid.
He looked, and saw the face of things quite changed. The brazen throat of war had ceased to roar. All now was turned to jollity and game, to luxury and riot, feast and dance, marrying or prostituting, as befell, rape or adultery, where passing fair allured them. Thence from cups to civil broils. At length a reverend sire among them came, and of their doings great dislike declared, and testified against their ways. He oft frequented their assemblies, where so met, triumphs or festivals, and to them preached conversion and repentance, as to souls in prison under judgments imminent, but all in vain. Which when he saw, he ceased contending, and removed his tents far off. Then from the mountain hewing timber tall, began to build a vessel of huge bulk, measured by cubit, length and breadth and height, smeared round with pitch, and in the side a door contrived, and of provisions laid in large for man and beast. When, lo, a wonder strange! Of every beast and bird and insect small came sevens and pairs, and entered in, as taught their order. Last the sire and his 3 sons, with their 4 wives, and God made fast the door. Meanwhile the south wind rose, and with black wings wide hovering, all the clouds together drove from under heaven. The hills to their supply, vapour and exhalation dusk and moist sent up amain. And now the thickened sky like a dark ceiling stood. Down rushed the rain impetuous, and continued till the earth no more was seen. The floating vessel swam uplifted, and secure with beaked prow rode tilting o'er the waves. All dwellings else flood overwhelmed, and them with all their pomp deep under water rolled. Sea-covered sea, sea without shore, and in their palaces where luxury late reigned, sea monsters whelped and stabled. Of mankind so numerous late, all left, in one small bottom swum embarked. How didst thou grieve then, Adam, to behold the end of all thy offspring, end so sad, depopulation. Thee another flood, of tears and sorrow a flood, thee also drowned, and sunk thee as thy sons, till, gently reared by the angel, on thy feet thou stoodst at last, though comfortless, as when a father mourns his children, all in view destroyed at once, and scarce to the angel utteredst thus thy plaint.
O visions ill foreseen! Better had I lived ignorant of future, so had borne my part of evil only, each day's lot enough to bear. Those now that were dispensed the burden of many ages, on me alight at once, by my knowledge gaining birth abortive, to torment me ere their being, with thought that they must be. Let no man seek henceforth to be foretold what shall befall him or his children. I had hope, when violence was ceased, and war on earth, all would have then gone well. Peace would have crowned with length of happy days the race of man. But I was far deceived, for now I see peace to corrupt, no less than war to waste. How comes it thus? Unfold, celestial guide, and whether here the race of man will end.
Those whom last thou sawest in triumph and luxurious wealth, are they first seen in acts of prowess eminent and great exploits, but of true virtue void, who, having spilt much blood and done much waste subduing nations, and achieved thereby fame in a world, high titles and rich prey, shall change their course to pleasure, ease and sloth, surfeit and lust, till wantonness and pride raise out of friendship hostile deeds in peace. So all shall turn degenerate, all depraved, justice and temperance, truth and faith forgot. One man except, the only Son of light, shall build a wondrous ark, as thou beheldst, to save himself and household from amidst a world devote to universal wrack. No sooner he, with them of man and beast select for life, shall in the ark be lodged and sheltered round, but all the cataracts of heaven set open, on the earth shall pour rain day and night. All fountains of the deep broke up shall heave the ocean to usurp beyond all bounds, till inundation rise above the highest hills. Then shall this mount of paradise, by might of waves, be moved out of his place, pushed by the horned flood, with all his verdure spoiled and trees adrift, down the great river to the opening gulf, and there take root, an island, salt and bare, the haunt of seals and auks and sea-mews clang, to teach thee that God attributes to place no sanctity, if none be thither brought by men who there frequent or therein dwell. And now what further shall ensue? Behold.
He looked, and saw the ark hull on the flood, which now abated, for the clouds were fled, driven by a keen north wind, that blowing dry wrinkled the face of deluge as decayed. And the clear sun on his wide watery glass gazed hot, and of the fresh wave largely drew, as after thirst, which made their flowing shrink from standing lake to tripping ebb, that stole with soft foot toward the deep, who now had stopped his sluices as the heaven his windows shut. The ark no more now floats, but seems on ground, fast on the top of some high mountain fixed, and now the tops of hills as rocks appear. With clamour thence the rapid currents drive towards the retreating sea their furious tide. Forthwith from out the ark a raven flies, and after him the surer messenger, a dove, sent forth once and again to spy green tree or ground whereon his foot may light. The second time returning, in his bill an olive leaf he brings, pacific sign. Anon dry ground appears, and from his ark the ancient sire descends with all his train. Then with uplifted hands and eyes devout, grateful to heaven, over his head beholds a dewy cloud, and in the cloud a bow, conspicuous with 3 listed colours gay, betokening peace from God and covenant new. Whereat the heart of Adam, erst so sad, greatly rejoiced, and thus his joy broke forth.
O thou, who future things canst represent as present, heavenly instructor, I revive at this last sight, assured that man shall live with all the creatures, and their seed preserve. Far less I now lament for one whole world of wicked sons destroyed, than I rejoice for one man found so perfect and so just, that God vouchsafes to raise another world from him, and all his anger to forget. But say, what mean those coloured streaks in heaven? Distended as the brow of God appeased? Or serve they as flowery verge to bind the fluid skirts of that same watery cloud, lest it again dissolve and shower the earth?
To whom the archangel?
Dexterously thou aim'st, so willingly doth God remit his ire, and makes a covenant never to destroy the earth again by flood, nor let the sea surpass his bounds, nor rain to drown the world with man therein or beast. But when he brings over the earth a cloud, will therein set his triple-coloured bow, whereon to look and call to mind his covenant. Day and night, seed time and harvest, heat and hoary frost shall hold their course, till fire purge all things new, both heaven and earth, wherein the just shall dwell.
In the 38th episode of Paradise Lost, Mark Straker was Michael and Linus Roach Adam. The narrator was Dennis Quiddy. Paradise Lost by John Milton, with Mark Straker as the Archangel Michael. Episode 39, in which Michael relates to Adam the works of Abraham and how Moses will lead the children of Israel out of Egypt.
As one who in his journey stops at noon, though bent on speed, so here the archangel paused betwixt the world destroyed and world restored, if Adam aught perhaps might interpose. Then, with transition sweet, new speech resumes.
Thus thou hast seen one world begin and end, and man as from a second stock proceed. Much thou hast yet to see, but I perceive thy mortal sight to fail. Objects divine must needs impair and weary human sense. Henceforth, what is to come I will relate. Thou therefore give due audience and attend. This second source of men, while yet but few, and while the dread of the great flood remains fresh in their minds, fearing the deity, with some regard to what is just and right, shall lead their lives, and multiply apace, labouring the soil and reaping plenteous crop, corn, wine, and oil, and from the herd or flock oft sacrificing bullock, lamb, or kid, with large wine offerings poured in sacred feast, shall spend their days in joy unblamed, and dwell long time in peace by families and tribes under paternal rule. Till one shall rise of proud ambitious heart, who, not content with fair equality, fraternal state, will arrogate dominion undeserved over his brethren, and quite dispossess concord and law of nature from the earth. Hunting, and men, not beasts, shall be his game, with war and hostile snare, such as refuse subjection to his empire tyrannous. A mighty hunter thence he shall be styled before the Lord, as in despite of heaven, or from heaven claiming second sovereignty. And from rebellion shall derive his name, though of rebellion others he accuse. He, with a crew, whom like ambition joins with him, or under him to tyrannize, marching from Eden towards the west, shall find the plain, wherein a black bituminous gurge boils out from underground, the mouth of hell. Of brick and of that stuff they cast to build a city and tower, whose top may reach to heaven and get themselves a name, lest, far dispersed in foreign lands, their memory be lost, regardless whether good or evil fame. But God, who oft descends to visit men unseen, and through their habitations walks to mark their doings, them beholding soon, comes down to see their city, ere the tower obstruct heaven towers, and in derision sets upon their tongues a various spirit to raise quite out their native language, and instead to sow a jangling noise of words unknown. Forthwith a hideous gabble rises loud among the builders, each to the other calls not understood, till hoarse and all in rage as mocked them storm. Great laughter was in heaven and looking down, to see the hubbub strange and hear the din. Thus was the building left ridiculous, and the work confusion named.
Whereto thus Adam fatherly displeased.
O execrable son, so to aspire above his brethren, to himself assuming authority usurped, from God not given. He gave us only over beast, fish, fowl dominion absolute, the right we hold by his donation. But man over men he made not lord, such title to himself reserving, human left from human free. But this usurper his encroachment proud stays not on man, to God his tower intends siege and defiance. Wretched man! What food will he convey up thither to sustain himself and his rash army, where thin air above the clouds will pine his entrails gross, and famish him of breath, if not of bread?
Justly thou abhorrest that son, who on the quiet state of men such trouble brought, affecting to subdue rational liberty. Yet know withal, since thy original lapse, true liberty is lost, which always with right reason dwells twinned, and from her hath no individual being. Reason in man obscured or not obeyed, immediately inordinate desires and upstart passions catch the government from reason, and to servitude reduce man till then free. Therefore, since he permits within himself unworthy powers to reign over free reason, God, in judgment just, subjects him from without to violent lords, who oft as undeservedly enthrall his outward freedom. Tyranny must be, though to the tyrant thereby no excuse. Yet sometimes nations will decline so low from virtue, which is reason, that no wrong but justice and some fatal curse annexed deprives them of their outward liberty, their inward lost. Witness the irreverent son of him who built the ark, who for the shame done to his father heard this heavy curse, servant of servants, on his vicious race. Thus will this latter, as the former world, still tend from bad to worse, till God, at last wearied from their iniquities, withdraw his presence from among them, and avert his holy eyes, resolving from thenceforth to leave them to their own polluted ways, and one peculiar nation to select from all the rest, of whom to be invoked, a nation from one faithful man to spring, him on this side Euphrates yet residing, bred up in idol worship. Oh, that men, canst thou believe, should be so stupid grown, while yet the patriarch lived who scaped the flood, as to forsake the living God, and fall to worship their own work in wood and stone for gods. Yet him God the Most High vouchsafes to call by vision from his father's house, his kindred and false gods, into a land which he will show him, and from him will raise a mighty nation, and upon him shower his benediction so, that in his seed all nations shall be blessed. He straight obeys, not knowing to what land, yet firm believes. I see him, but thou canst not. With what faith he leaves his gods, his friends and native soil, Ur of Chaldea, passing now the ford to Haran. After him a cumbrous train of herds and flocks, and numerous servitude, not wandering poor, but rusting all his wealth with God, who called him in a land unknown. Canaan he now attains. I see his tents pitched about Shechem and the neighbouring plain of Moreh. There, by promise, he receives gift to his progeny of all that land. From Hamath northward to the desert south, things by their names I call, though yet unnamed. From Hermon east to the great western sea, Mount Hermon, yonder sea, each place behold in prospect as I point them. On the shore, Mount Carmel. Here, the double-founted stream, Jordan, true limit eastward. But his son shall dwell to Sennar, that long ridge of hills. This ponder, that all nations of the earth shall in his seed be blessed. By that seed is meant thy great deliverer, who shall bruise the serpent's head, whereof to thee anon plainlier shall be revealed. This patriarch blessed, whom faithful Abraham due time shall call, a son, and of his son a grandchild leaves, like him in faith, in wisdom, and renown. The grandchild, with 12 sons increased, departs from Canaan to a land hereafter called Egypt, divided by the river Nile. See where it flows, disgorging its 7 mouths into the sea. To sojourn in that land, he comes invited by a younger son in time of dearth, son whose worthy deeds raise him to be the second in that realm of Pharaoh. There he dies, and leaves his race growing into a nation, and now grown suspected to a sequent king, who seeks to stop their overgrowth, as inmate guests too numerous. Whence of guests he makes them slaves inhospitably, and kills their infant males. Till, by 2 brethren, those 2 brethren call Moses and Aaron, sent from God to claim his people from enthrallment, they return with glory and spoil back to their promised land. But first, the lawless tyrant, who denies to know their God, or message to regard, must be compelled by signs and judgments dire. To blood unshed the rivers must be turned, frogs, lice, and flies must all his palace fill with loathed intrusion, and fill all the land. His cattle must of rot and murrain die, botches and blains must all his flesh emboss, and all his people. Thunder mixed with hail, hail mixed with fire, must rend the Egyptian sky, and wheel on the earth, devouring where it rolls. What it devours not, herb or fruit or grain, a darksome cloud of locusts, swarming down, must eat, and on the ground leave nothing green. Darkness must overshadow all his bounds, palpable darkness, and blot out 3 days. Last, with one midnight stroke, all the firstborn of Egypt must lie dead. Thus, with 10 wounds, the river dragon, tamed at length, submits to let his sojourners depart, and oft humbles his stubborn heart, but still, as ice more hardened after thaw, till, in his rage, pursuing whom he late dismissed, the sea swallows him with his host, but lets them pass as on dry land between 2 crystal walls, awed by the rod of Moses so to stand divided, till his rescued gain their shore. Such wondrous power God to his saint will lend, though present in his angel, who shall go before them in a cloud and pillar of fire, by day a cloud, by night a pillar of fire, to guide them in their journey, and remove behind them while the obdurate king pursues. All night he will pursue, but his approach darkness defends between till morning watch. Then, through the fiery pillar and the cloud, God, looking forth, will trouble all his host, and craze their chariot wheels, when, by command, Moses once more his potent rod extends over the sea. The sea his rod obeys. On their embattled ranks the waves return, and overwhelm their war.
In the 39th episode of Paradise Lost, Mark Straker was Michael and Linus Roach Adam. The narrator was Dennis Quilley. Paradise Lost by John Milton, with Mark Straker as the Archangel Michael. Episode 40, in which Michael tells Adam of the future reign of King David and of the nativity of Jesus Christ.
The race elect, safe towards Canaan from the shore advance, through the wild desert, not the readiest way, lest, entering on the Canaanite alarmed, war terrify them inexpert, and fear return them back to Egypt, choosing rather inglorious life with servitude. For life to noble and ignoble is more sweet untrained in arms, where rashness leads not on. This also shall they gain by their delay in the wide wilderness. There they shall found their government, and their great senate choose through the 12 tribes, to rule by laws ordained. God from the mount of Sinai, whose great top shall tremble, he descending, will himself in thunder, lightning, and loud trumpet sound ordain them laws, part such as appertain to civil justice, part religious rites of sacrifice, informing them by types and shadows of that destined seed to bruise the serpent, by what means he shall achieve mankind's deliverance. But the voice of God to mortal ear is dreadful. They beseech that Moses might report to them his will, and terror cease. He grants what they besought, instructed that to God is no access without mediator, whose high office now Moses in figure bears, to introduce one greater, of whose day he shall foretell, and all the prophets in their age the times of great Messiah shall sing. Thus laws and rights established, such delight hath God in men obedient to his will, that he vouchsafes among them to set up his tabernacle, the Holy One with mortal men to dwell. By his prescript a sanctuary is framed of cedar, overlaid with gold, therein an ark, and in the ark his testimony, the records of his covenant, over these a mercy seat of gold, between the wings of 2 bright cherubim. Before him burn 7 lamps, as in a zodiac, representing the heavenly fires. Over the tent a cloud shall rest by day, a fiery gleam by nights, save when they journey. And at length they come, conducted by his angel, to the land promised to Abraham and his seed. The rest were long to tell, how many battles fought, how many kings destroyed and kingdoms won, or how the sun shall in mid-heaven stand still a day entire, and night's due course adjourn, man's voice commanding, Sun in Gibeon stand, and thou moon in the vale of Aelon, till Israel overcome. So call the third from Abraham, son of Isaac, and from him his whole descent, who thus shall Canaan win.
Here Adam interposed,
O sent from heaven, enlightener of my darkness, gracious things thou hast revealed, those chiefly which concern just Abraham and his seed. Now first I find mine eyes true opening, and my heart much eased, erewhile perplexed with thoughts what would become of me and all mankind. But now I see his day, in whom all nations shall be blessed. Favor unmerited by me, who sought forbidden knowledge by forbidden means. This yet I apprehend not. Why to those among whom God will deign to dwell on earth, so many and so various laws are given? So many laws argue so many sins among them. How can God with such reside?
Doubt not but that sin will reign among them, as of thee begot. And therefore was law given them to evince their natural pravity, by stirring up sin against law to fight, that when they see law can discover sin, but not remove, save by those shadowy expiations weak, the blood of bulls and goats, they may conclude some blood more precious must be paid for man, just for unjust, that in such righteousness to them by faith imputed, they may find justification towards God, and peace of conscience, which the law by ceremonies cannot appease, nor man the moral part perform, and, not performing, cannot live. So, law appears imperfect, and but given with purpose to resign them in full time up to a better covenant. disciplined from shadowy types to truth, from flesh to spirit, from imposition of strict laws to free acceptance of large grace, from servile fear to filial, works of law to works of faith. And therefore shall not Moses, though of God highly beloved, being but the minister of law, his people into Canaan lead, but Joshua, whom the Gentiles Jesus call, his name and office bearing, who shall quell the adversary serpent, and bring back through the world's wilderness long wandered man, safe to eternal paradise of rest. Meanwhile they in their earthly Canaan placed, long time shall dwell and prosper. But when sins national interrupt their public peace, provoking God to raise them enemies, from whom as oft he saves them penitent by judges first, then under kings, of whom the second, both for piety renowned and puissant deeds, a promise shall receive, irrevocable, that his regal throne for ever shall endure. The like shall sing all prophecy, that of the royal stock of David, so I name this king, shall rise a son, the woman's seed to thee foretold, foretold to Abraham, as in whom shall trust all nations, and to kings foretold, of kings the last, for of his reign shall be no end. But first a long succession must ensue, and his next son, for wealth and wisdom famed, the clouded ark of God, till then intense wandering, shall in a glorious temple enshrine. Such follow him as shall be registered part good, part bad, of bad the longer scroll, whose foul idolatries and other faults, heaped to the people's sins, will so incense God as to leave them, and expose their land, their city, his temple, and his holy ark with all his sacred things, a scorn and prey to that proud city, whose high walls thou sawest left in confusion, Babylon thence called. There in captivity he lets them swell the space of 70 years, then brings them back, remembering mercy and his covenant sworn to David, stablished as the days of heaven. Returned from Babylon by leave of kings, their lords whom God disposed, the house of God they first re-edify, and for a while in mean estate live moderate, till grown in wealth and multitude, factious they grow. But first, among the priests, dissension springs, men who attend the altar, and should most endeavour peace. Their strife pollution brings upon the temple itself. At last they seize the sceptre, and regard not David's sons, then lose it to a stranger, that the true anointed King Messiah might be born bard of his right. Yet at his birth a star, unseen before in heaven, proclaims him come, and guides the eastern sages who inquire his place to offer incense, myrrh, and gold. His place of birth a solemn angel tells to simple shepherds, keeping watch by night. They gladly thither haste, and by a choir of squadroned angels hear his carol sung. A virgin is his mother, but his sire the power of the Most High. He shall ascend the throne hereditary, and bound his reign with earth's wide bounds, his glory with the heavens.
He ceased, discerning Adam with such joy surcharged, as had, like grief, been dewed in tears, without the vent of words, which these he breathed.
O prophet of glad tidings, finisher of utmost hope, now clear I understand what oft my steadiest thoughts have searched in vain, why our great expectation should be called the seed of woman. Virgin Mother, hail, high in the love of heaven, yet from my loins thou shalt proceed, and from thy womb the Son of God Most High. So God with man unites. Needs must the serpent now his capital bruise expect with mortal pain. Say where and when their fight, what stroke shall bruise the victor's heel?
To whom thus Michael,
Dream not of their fight as of a duel, or the local wounds of head or heel. Not therefore joins the son manhood to godhead with more strength to foil thy enemy. Nor so is overcome Satan, whose fall from heaven a deadlier bruise, disabled not to give thee thy death's wound, which he, who comes thy Saviour, shall recure, not by destroying Satan, but his works in thee and in thy seed. Nor can this be but by fulfilling that which thou didst want, obedience to the law of God, imposed on penalty of death, and suffering death, the penalty to thy transgression due, and due to theirs which out of thine will grow. So only can high justice rest apaid. The law of God exact he shall fulfill, both of obedience and by love, though love alone fulfill the law. Thy punishment he shall endure by coming in the flesh to a reproachful life and cursed death, proclaiming life to all who shall believe in his redemption, and that his obedience imputed becomes theirs by faith, his merits to save them, not their own, though legal works. For this he shall live hated, be blasphemed, seized on by force, judged, and to death condemned, a shameful and accursed, nailed to the cross by his own nation, slain for bringing life. But to the cross he nails his enemies, the law that is against thee, and the sins of all mankind, with him there crucified, never to hurt them more who rightly trust in this his satisfaction. So he dies, but soon revives. Death over him no power shall long usurp. Ere the third dawning light return, the stars of morn shall see him rise out of his grave, fresh as the dawning light, thy ransom paid, which man from death redeems, his death for man, as many as offered life neglect not, and benefit embrace by faith, not void of works. This godlike act annuls thy doom, the death thou shouldst have died in sin, for ever lost from life. This act shall bruise the head of Satan, crush his strength, defeating sin and death, his two main arms, and fix far deeper in his head their stings than temporal death shall bruise the victor's heel, or theirs whom he redeems. A death like sleep, a gentle wafting to immortal life.
In the 40th episode of Paradise Lost, Mark Straker was Michael and Linus Roach Adam. The narrator was Dennis Quilley. Paradise Lost was abridged by Adrian Mitchell with music by Elizabeth Parker. The director was John Theocaris. Paradise Lost by John Milton, with Dennis Quilley as the poet and Mark Straker as the Archangel Michael. The concluding episode, in which Michael comforts Adam and leads him together with Eve out of paradise.
After Christ's resurrection, he'll not stay longer on earth than certain times to appear to his disciples, men who in his life still followed him. To them shall leave in charge to teach all nations what of him they learned and his salvation. Them who shall believe, baptizing in the profluent stream, the sign of washing them from guilt of sin to life pure, and in mind prepared, if so befall, for death, like that which the Redeemer died. All nations shall they teach, for from that day not only to the sons of Abraham's loins salvation shall be preached, but to the sons of Abraham's faith wherever through the world. So, in his seed all nations shall be blessed. Then, to the heaven of heavens he shall ascend with victory, triumphing through the air over his foes and thine. There shall surprise the serpent, prince of air, and drag in chains through all his realm, and there confounded leave. Then enter into glory, and resume his seat at God's right hand, exalted high above all names in heaven. And then shall come, when this world's dissolution shall be ripe, with glory and power, to judge both quick and dead, to judge the unfaithful dead, but to reward his faithful, and receive them into bliss, whether in heaven or earth. For then the earth shall all be paradise, far happier place than this of Eden. and far happier days.
So spake the Archangel Michael, then paused, as at the world's great period. And our sire, replete with joy and wonder, thus replied,
O goodness infinite, goodness immense, that all this good of evil shall produce, and evil turn to good. More wonderful than that which by creation first brought forth light out of darkness. Full of doubt I stand, whether I should repent me now of sin by me done and occasioned, or rejoice much more, that much more good thereof shall spring. To God more glory, more goodwill to men from God, and over wrath grace shall abound. But say, if our deliverer up to heaven must reascend, what will betide the few, his faithful, left among the unfaithful herd, the enemies of truth? Who then shall guide his people? Who defend? Will they not deal worse with his followers than with him they dealt?
Be sure they will deal badly. But from heaven he to his own a comforter will send, the promise of the Father, who shall dwell his Spirit within them. And the law of faith, working through love, upon their heart shall write to guide them in all truth, and also arm with spiritual armor, able to resist Satan's assaults and quench his fiery darts. What man can do against them, not afraid, though to the death, against such cruelties with inward consolations recompensed and oft supported, so as shall amaze their proudest persecutors. For the Spirit poured first on his apostles, whom he sends to evangelize the nations, then on all baptized, shall them with wondrous gifts endue to speak all tongues and do all miracles, as did their Lord before them. Thus they win great numbers of each nation to receive with joy the tidings brought from heaven. At length, their ministry performed and race well run, their doctrine and their story written left, they die. But in their room, as they forewarn, wolves shall succeed for teachers, grievous wolves, who all the sacred mysteries of heaven to their own vile advantages shall turn off lucre and ambition, and the truth with superstitions and traditions taint, left only in those written records pure, though not but by the Spirit understood. Then shall they seek to avail themselves of names, places, and titles, and with these to join secular power, though feigning still to act by spiritual, to themselves appropriating the Spirit of God, promised alike and given to all believers. And from that pretense, spiritual laws by carnal power shall force on every conscience, laws which none shall find left them enrolled, or what the Spirit within shall on the heart engrave. What will they then but force the Spirit of grace itself, and bind his consort liberty? What? But unbuild his living temples, built by faith to stand, their own faith, not another's. For on earth, who 'gainst faith and conscience can be heard infallible? Yet many will presume. Whence heavy persecution shall arise on all who in the worship persevere of spirit and truth. The rest, far greater part, well deem in outward rites and specious forms religion satisfied. Truth shall retire bestuck with slanderous darts, and works of faith rarely be found. So shall the world go on, to good malignant, to bad men benign, under her own weight groaning, till the day appear of respiration to the just, and vengeance to the wicked, at return of him so lately promised to thy aid, the woman's seed, obscurely then foretold, now amplier known, the Saviour and thy Lord, last in the clouds from heaven to be revealed in glory of the Father, to dissolve Satan with his perverted world, then raise from the conflagrant mass, purged and refined, new heavens, new earth, ages of endless date, founded in righteousness and peace and love, to bring forth fruits, joy, and eternal bliss.
He ended, And thus Adam last replied.
How soon hath thy prediction, seer blessed, measured this transient world, the race of time, till time stand fixed. Beyond is all abyss, eternity, whose end no eye can reach. Greatly instructed, I shall hence depart, greatly in peace of thought, and have my fill of knowledge, what this vessel can contain, beyond which was my folly to aspire. Henceforth I learn that to obey is best, and love with fear the only God, to walk as in his presence, ever to observe his providence, and on him sole depend, merciful over all his works, with good still overcoming evil, and by small accomplishing great things, by things deemed weak subverting worldly strong, and worldly wise by simply meek, that suffering for truth's sake is fortitude to highest victory, and to the faithful, death, the gate of life. Taught this by his example, whom I now acknowledge, my Redeemer, ever blessed.
To whom thus also the angel last replied.
This having learned, thou hast attained the sum of wisdom. Hope no higher, though all the stars thou knewest by name, and all the ethereal powers, all secrets of the deep, all nature's works, or works of God in heaven, air, earth, or sea, and all the riches of this world enjoyed, and all the rule one empire. Only add deeds to thy knowledge answerable. Add faith, add virtue, patience, temperance, add love, by name to come called charity, the soul of all the rest. Then wilt thou not be loath to leave this paradise, but shall possess a paradise within thee, happier far. Let us descend now, therefore, from this top of speculation. For the hour precise exacts our parting hence, and see, the guards by me encamped on yonder hill expect their motion, at whose front a flaming sword in signal of remove waves fiercely round. We may no longer stay. Go, waken Eve. Her also I with gentle dreams have calmed, portending good, and all her spirits composed to meek submission. Thou, at season fit, let her with thee partake what thou hast heard, chiefly what may concern her faith to know, the great deliverance by her seed to come, for by the woman's seed, on all mankind. That ye may live, which will be many days, both in one faith unanimous, though sad with cause for evils past, yet much more cheered with meditation on the happy end.
He ended, and they both descend the hill. Descended, Adam to the bower where Eve lay sleeping ran before, but found her waked, and thus, with words not sad, she him received.
Whence thou return'st, and whither went'st, I know, for God is also in sleep, and dreams advise, which he hath sent propitious, some great good presaging, since with sorrow and heart's distress, wearied I fell asleep. But now lead on, in me is no delay. With thee to go is to stay here, without thee here to stay is to go hence unwilling. Thou to me art all things under heaven, all places thou, who for my wilful crime art banished hence. This further consolation yet secure I carry hence, though all by me is lost, such favour I unworthy am vouchsafed, by me the promised seed shall all restore.
So spake our mother Eve, and Adam heard well pleased, but answered not, for now too nigh the archangel stood, and from the other hill to their fixed station, all in bright array, the cherubim descended. On the ground gliding meteorous, as evening mist risen from a river o'er the marish glides, and gathers ground fast at the labourer's heel homeward returning. High in front advanced, The brandished sword of God before them blazed fierce as a comet, which with torrid heat and vapour as a Libyan air adust began to parch that temperate clime, whereat in either hand the hastening angel caught our lingering parents, and to the eastern gate led them direct, and down the cliff as fast to the subjected plain, then disappeared. They, looking back, all the eastern side beheld of paradise, so late their happy seat, waved over by that flaming brand. The gate with dreadful faces thronged and fiery arms. Some natural tears they dropped, but wiped them soon. The world was all before them, where to choose their place of rest, and Providence their guide. They, hand in hand, with wandering steps and slow, through Eden took their solitary way.
In the concluding episode of Paradise Lost, Dennis Quilly was the narrator, Mark Straker the Archangel Michael, Linus Roach Adam, and Federe Holmes Eve. John Milton's epic poem was abridged by Adrian Mitchell, with music by Elizabeth Parker of the BBC Radiophonic Workshop. The production assistant was Katrina Wade. Paradise Lost was directed by John Theocaris. Paradise Regained by John Milton, abridged by Adrian Mitchell in 9 episodes, with Dennis Quilly as the poet, Ian McDermott as Satan, Godfrey Canton as God, and Robert Glenister as Christ. Episode 1, in which Satan undertakes the temptation of Christ and leads him into the wilderness.
I, who erewhile the happy garden sung, by one man's disobedience lost, now sing recovered paradise to all mankind, by one man's firm obedience fully tried through all temptation, and the tempter foiled in all his wiles, defeated and repulsed, and Eden raised in the waste wilderness. Now had the great proclaimer, with a voice more awful than the sound of trumpet, cried, Repentance, and heaven's kingdom nigh at hand to all baptized. To his great baptism flocked with awe the regions round, and with them came from Nazareth the son of Joseph deemed, to the flood Jordan, came as then obscure, unmarked, unknown. But him the Baptist soon descried, divinely warned, and witness bore as to his worthier, and would have resigned to him his heavenly office. Nor was long his witness unconfirmed. On him baptized, heaven opened, and in likeness of a dove the Spirit descended, while the Father's voice from heaven pronounced him his beloved Son. That heard the adversary, who, roving still about the world, at that assembly famed would not be last, and with the voice divine nigh thunderstruck, the exalted man, to whom such high a test was given, awhile surveyed with wonder. Then with envy fraught and rage flies to his place, nor rests, but in mid-air to council summons all his mighty peers, within thick clouds and dark tenfold involved, a gloomy consistory. And them amidst, with looks aghast and sad, he thus bespake.
O ancient powers of air and this wide world, well ye know how many ages as the years of men this universe we have possessed, and ruled in manner at our will the affairs of earth, since Adam and his facile consort Eve lost paradise deceived by me, though since with dread attending, when that fatal wound shall be inflicted by the seed of Eve upon my head. Long the decrees of heaven delay, for longest time to him is short. For this ill news I bring. The woman's seed, destined to this, is late of woman born. His birth to our just fear gave no small cause, but his growth now to youth's full flower, displaying all virtue, grace, and wisdom to achieve things highest, greatest, multiplies my fear. Before him a great prophet, to proclaim his coming, is sent harbinger. All come, and he himself among them was baptized, not thence to be more pure, but to receive the testimony of heaven, that who he is, thenceforth the nations may not doubt. I saw the prophet do him reverence, on him rising out of the water. Heaven above the clouds unfold her crystal doors, thence on his head a perfect dove descend, whate'er it meant, and out of heaven the sovereign voice I heard, This is my Son beloved, in him am pleased. His mother then is mortal, but his sire, he who obtains the monarchy of heaven. And what will he not do to advance his son? His first begot we know, and sore have felt, when his fierce thunder drove us to the deep. Who this is, we must learn. For man he seems in all his lineaments, though in his face the glimpses of his father's glory shine. Ye see our danger on the utmost edge of hazard, which admits no long debate, but must with something sudden be opposed, not force, but well-couched fraud, well-woven snares, ere in the head of nations he appear, their king, their leader, and supreme on earth. Aye, when no other durst, sole undertook the dismal expedition to find out and ruin Adam, and the exploit performed successfully. A calmer voyage now will waft me, and the way found prosperous once induces best to hope of like success.
He ended, and his words impression left of much amazement to the infernal crew. Unanimous, they all commit the care and management of this main enterprise to him, their great dictator. So to the coast of Jordan he directs his easy steps, girded with snaky wiles, where he might likeliest find this new declared, this man of men, attested Son of God, temptation and all guile on him to try, so to subvert whom he suspected raised to end his reign on earth so long enjoyed. But contrary, unwitting, he fulfilled the purposed counsel preordained and fixed of the Most High, who in full frequence bright of angels thus to Gabriel smiling spake.
Gabriel, this day by proof thou shalt behold, thou and all angels conversant on earth with man or men's affairs, how I begin to verify that solemn message late, on which I sent thee to the Virgin pure in Galilee, that she should bear a son, great in renown, and called the Son of God. Then toldst her, doubting, how these things could be to her, a virgin, that on her should come the Holy Ghost, and the power of the highest o'ershadow her. This man born, and now upgrown, to show him worthy of his birth divine and high prediction, henceforth I expose to Satan. Let him tempt, and now assay his utmost subtlety, because he boasts and vaunts of his great cunning to the throng of his apostasy. He now shall know I can produce a man of female seed, far abler to resist all his solicitations, and at length all his vast force, and drive him back to hell, winning by conquest what the first man lost by fallacy surprised. But first I mean to exercise him in the wilderness. There he shall first lay down the rudiments of his great warfare, ere I send him forth to conquer sin and death, the two grand foes, by humiliation and strong sufferance. His weakness shall o'ercome satanic strength, and all the world and mass of sinful flesh, that all the angels and ethereal powers, they now and men hereafter may discern from what consummate virtue I have chose this perfect man, by merit called my son, to earn salvation for the sons of men.
So spake the Eternal Father, and all heaven admiring stood a space. Then into hymns burst forth, and in celestial measures moved, circling the throne and singing. Meanwhile the Son of God, who yet some days lodged in Bethabara, where John baptized, musing and much revolving in his breast how best the mighty work he might begin of Saviour to mankind, and which way first publish his godlike office, now mature, one day forth walked alone, the Spirit leading, and his deep thoughts, the better to converse with solitude, till far from track of men, thought following thought, and step by step led on, he entered now the bordering desert wild, and with dark shades and rocks environed round, his holy meditations thus pursued.
Oh, what a multitude of thoughts at once awakened in me swarm, while I consider what from within I feel myself, and hear what from without comes often to my ears, ill sorting with my present state compared. When I was yet a child, no childish play to me was pleasing. All my mind was set serious to learn and know, and thence to do what might be public good. Myself I thought born to that end, born to promote all truth, all righteous things. Therefore above my years the law of God I read, and found it sweet, made it my whole delight, and in it grew to such perfection, that ere yet my age had measured twice 6 years, at our great feast I went into the temple, there to hear the teachers of our law, and to propose what might improve my knowledge or their own, and was admired by all. Yet this not all to which my spirit aspired. Victorious deeds flamed in my heart, heroic acts, one, while to rescue Israel from the Roman yoke, thence to subdue and quell o'er all the earth brute violence and proud tyrannic power, till truth were freed and equity restored. Yet held it more humane, more heavenly, first by winning words to conquer willing hearts, and make persuasion do the work of fear. At least to try and teach the erring soul, not wilfully misdoing, but unware, misled, the stubborn only to subdue. These growing thoughts my mother soon perceiving, by words at times cast forth, inly rejoiced, and said to me apart,
High are thy thoughts, O son, but nourish them, and let them soar to what height sacred virtue and true worth can raise them, though above example high. By matchless deeds express thy matchless sire, for know, thou art no son of mortal man. Though men esteem thee low of parentage, thy father is the eternal King, who rules all heaven and earth, angels and sons of men. A messenger from God foretold thy birth, conceived in me a virgin. He foretold thou shouldst be great, and sit on David's throne, and of thy kingdom there should be no end. At thy nativity a glorious choir of angels in the fields of Bethlehem sung to shepherds watching at their folds by night, and told them the Messiah now was born, where they might see him. And to thee they came, directed to the manger where thou lay'st, for in the inn was left no better room. A star, not seen before in heaven, appearing, guided the wise men thither from east, to honour thee with incense, myrrh, and gold, by whose bright course led on, they found the place, affirming at thy star new graven in heaven, by which they knew thee, King of Israel born.
In the opening episode of Paradise Regained by John Milton, Federae Holmes was the Virgin Mary, Godfrey Canton was God, Robert Glenister the Son of God, and Ian McDiarmid, Satan. Dennis Quilley was the narrator. Paradise Regained is abridged in 9 episodes by Adrian Mitchell, with music by Elizabeth Parker. The director is John Theocaris. Paradise Regained by John Milton, with Ian McDiarmid as Satan and Robert Glenister as Christ. Episode 2, in which Satan, disguised, approaches Christ in the wilderness and suggests that he should ease his hunger by turning the stones into bread.
My way must lie through many a hard assay, even unto the death, ere I the promised kingdom can attain, or work redemption for mankind, whose sin's full weight must be transferred upon my head. I, as all others, to the baptism came, which I believed was from above. But John straight knew me, and with loudest voice proclaimed me him, for it was shown him so from heaven, me him whose harbinger he was, and first refused on me his baptism to confer, as much his greater, and was hardly won. But as I rose out of the laving stream, heaven opened her eternal doors, from whence the Spirit descended on me like a dove, and last the sum of all, my Father's voice, audibly heard from heaven, pronounced me his beloved Son, in whom alone he was well pleased. By which I knew the time now full, that I no more should live obscure, but openly begin, as best becomes the authority which I derived from heaven. And now, by some strong motion, I am led into this wilderness, to what intent I learn not yet. Perhaps I need not know. For what concerns my knowledge, God reveals.
So spake our morning star then in his rise, and looking round, on every side beheld a pathless desert, dusk with horrid shades. The way he came not having marked, return was difficult, by human steps untrod, and he still on was led. But with such thoughts accompanied of things past and to come lodged in his breast, as well might recommend such solitude before choicest society. Full 40 days he passed, whether on hill sometimes, anon in shady vale, each night under the covert of some ancient oak or cedar to defend him from the dew, or harboured in one cave, is not revealed. Nor tasted human food, nor hunger felt, till those days ended. Hungered then, at last, among wild beasts. They at his sight grew mild, nor sleeping him nor waking harmed. His walk the fiery serpent fled, and noxious worm. The lion and fierce tiger glared aloof. But now an aged man in rural weeds, following as seemed the quest of some stray ewe, or withered sticks to gather, which might serve against a winter's day when winds blow keen, to warm him wet returned from field at eve, he saw approach, who first with curious eye perused him, then with words thus uttered spake.
Sir, what ill chance hath brought thee to this place, so far from path or road of men who pass in troop or caravan? For single none durst ever, who returned and dropped not here his carcass, pined with hunger and with drought. I ask the rather, and the more admire, for that to me thou seem'st the man whom late our new baptizing prophet at the ford of Jordan honoured so, and called thee Son of God.
Who brought me hither will bring me hence. No other guide I seek.
Oh, by miracle he may, in his good time. What other way I see not, for we here live on tough roots and stubs. To thirst inured more than the camel, and to drink go far. Men to much misery and hardship born. But if thou be the Son of God, command that out of these hard stones be made thee bread. So shalt thou save thyself, and us relieve with food, whereof we, wretched, seldom taste.
Think'st thou such force in bread? Is it not written, for I discern thee other than thou seem'st, man lives not by bread only, but each word proceeding from the mouth of God, who fed our fathers here with manna. In the mount Moses was 40 days, nor eat nor drank, and 40 days Eliah without food wandered this barren waste, the same I now. Why dost thou then suggest to me distrust, knowing who I am, as I know who thou art?
Whom thus answered the arch-fiend, now undisguised.
'Tis true. I am that spirit unfortunate, who, leagued with millions more in rash revolt, kept not my happy station, but was driven with them from bliss to the bottomless deep. Yet to that hideous place not so confined by rigour unconniving, but that oft leaving my dolorous prison I enjoy large liberty to round this globe of earth, or range in the air. Nor from the heaven of heavens hath he excluded my resort sometimes. I came among the sons of God when he gave up into my hands a Zion Job to prove him and illustrate his high worth. For what he bids, I do. Though I have lost much lustre of my native brightness, lost to be beloved of God, I have not lost to love, at least contemplate and admire what I see excellent in good or fair or virtuous. I should so have lost all sense. What can be then less in me than desire to see thee and approach thee, whom I know declared the Son of God, to hear attent thy wisdom, and behold thy godlike deeds? Men generally think me much a foe to all mankind. Why should I? They to me never did wrong or violence. By them I lost not what I lost, rather by them I gained what I have gained, and with them dwell co-partner in these regions of the world, if not disposer. Lend them oft my aid, oft my advice, by presages and signs, and answers, oracles, portents, and dreams, whereby they may direct their future life. Envy, they say, excites me, thus to gain companions of my misery and woe. At first it may be, but long since, with woe nearer acquainted, now I feel by proof that fellowship in pain divides not smart, nor lightens aught each man's peculiar load. Small consolation, then, were man adjoined. This wounds me most, what can it less, that man fallen shall be restored, I nevermore.
Deservedly thou grievest, composed of lies from the beginning, and in lies wilt end, who boastest release from hell and leave to come into the heaven of heavens. Thou comest indeed, as a poor miserable captive thrall comes to the place where he before had sat among the prime in splendour, now deposed, ejected, emptied, gazed, unpitied, shunned, a spectacle of ruin or of scorn to all the host of heaven. The happy place imparts to thee no happiness, no joy, rather inflames thy torment, representing lost bliss, to thee no more communicable, so never more in hell than when in heaven. But thou art serviceable to heaven's king. Wilt thou impute to obedience what thy fear extorts, or pleasure to do ill excites? What but thy malice move thee to misdeem of righteous Job, then cruelly to afflict him with all inflictions? But his patience won. Yet thou pretend'st to truth. All oracles by thee are given. And what confessed more true among the nations? That hath been thy craft, by mixing somewhat true to vent more lies. But what have been thy answers? What but dark ambiguous and with double sense deluding, which they who asked have seldom understood, and not well understood as good not known. Who ever by consulting a die shrine returned the wiser, or the more instruct to fly or follow what concerned him most, and run not sooner to his fatal snare? For God hath justly given the nations up to thy delusions, justly, since they fell idolatrous. But when his purpose is among them to declare his providence to thee not known, whence hast thou then thy truth? But from him or his angels president in every province, who themselves disdaining to approach thy temples, give thee in command what to the smallest tittle thou shalt say to thy adorers, thou with trembling fear, or like a fawning parasite obeyest. Then to thyself ascribest the truth foretold. But this thy glory shall be soon retrenched. No more shalt thou by oracling abuse the Gentiles. Henceforth oracles are ceased. And thou no more with pomp and sacrifice shall be enquired at Delphos or elsewhere, at least in vain, for they shall find thee mute. God hath now sent his living oracle into the world to teach his final will, and sends his spirit of truth henceforth to dwell in pious hearts, an inward oracle to all truth requisite for men to know.
Sharply thou hast insisted on rebuke, and urged me hard with doings, which not will, but misery hath wrested from me. Where easily canst thou find one miserable, and not enforced oft-times to part from truth? If it may stand him more instead to lie, say and unsay, feign, flatter, or abjure. But thou art placed above me, thou art Lord. From thee I can and must submiss, endure check or reproof, and glad to scape so quit. Hard are the ways of truth, and rough to walk, smooth on the tongue discoursed, pleasing to the ear, and tuneable as sylvan pipe or song. What wonder, then, if I delight to hear her dictates from thy mouth? Most men admire virtue who follow not her law. Permit me to hear thee when I come, since no man comes, and talk at least, though I despair to attain. Thy father, who is holy, wise, and pure, suffers the hypocrite or atheist priest to tread his sacred courts, and minister about his altar, handling holy things, praying. Disdain not such access to me.
Thy coming hither, though I know thy scope, I bid not or forbid. Do as thou find'st permission from above. Thou canst not more.
He added not, and Satan, bowing low his grey dissimulation, disappeared, into thin air diffused. For now began night with her sullen wing to double shade the desert. Fowls in their clay nests were couched, and now wild beasts came forth, the woods to roam.
In the second episode of Paradise Regained, Robert Glenister was the Son of God, and Ian McDiarmid was Satan. The narrator was Dennis Quilley.